Thanks everybody for being here today. Today we're going to talk about a few very specific things about the sales process and more specifically about automation and booking calendars, meetings with your customers, prospects, and relationships. So let's get started. What we're going to learn today is going to be briefly, we're going to talk about the Zoom setup. A lot of you are hearing this word, the Zoom, and it's interesting to me that a tool that we've been using for a long time, it's becoming a very important piece of doing business today. So we're going to speak about that a little. We had a series before just last week about Zoom and how to set it up, and we had a deep dive on that. So we'll talk about that too. We'll talk about online meetings etiquette, what it means to be on an online meeting, what are the things that you should be concerned about in terms of what the meetings should look like and how you should look like. We'll talk about your setup, meaning your camera, your microphone, your headset, all that stuff. We'll speak about best practices on how to get people engaged into booking that meeting with you. We'll talk about calendar or integration, how Outlook, automation, plugins, if you're using G Suite or Google Mail, Calendar, we'll talk about that as well. And more specifically, we're going to focus on a tool called Calendly. It's a tool that we use daily, but it's a phenomenal tool that helps you connect your calendar and connect people with you. And we'll talk about the next webinar series, which we're going to focus on DocuSign and how to get contracts signed online and POs and all that other good stuff. And then we'll do a little demo of it. Okay. So, but ultimately, what we're going to show you is how effectively you can use Zoom to do meetings online. And more importantly, I'm most fascinated about how much of that can I automate and how much of that it's just old school methods of doing things. So I've been in the business for 25 years. I've used some sort of form of automation since the beginning of my career. I thank you all for being here. As part of the Long Island business community, we feel obligated to come up with content to help you during these difficult times. I want to quickly remind everyone on this call that if you know somebody who's not able to work from home or is having problems working from home, that we are available. I don't care if you're a customer or not. We'll be more than happy to give you a free VPN and get you on set up and work safely from home. Um, so it is a completely different world for us. It has changed quite a bit. And by the way, it might forever be changed, right? I mean, the way we do business today might be highly impacted by the situation right now. And what I mean by that is, you know, a lot of these newcomers that are coming into being business leaders today are accustomed to tools like Zoom, are accustomed to tools like GoToMeeting. So it's the landscape is going to change drastically going forward, simply because this is now more available and people have experienced it during this horrible catastrophe. But it will forever change the way we do business. That is my opinion, and I've always been connected with the model of if you're not innovating, you're dying. So it's a very interesting time in our life, in our business life. However, your team still needs to be productive, right? The business development part of your business is it cannot be stopped. It has to continue. And I will tell you this, you know, more importantly, it's very important right now to have and continue to build those relationships with your customers, your prospects. You know, we've been in contact with people that we were about to do business with, and you know, this happened to no fault of anybody. So we just stay in touch with them. We openly ask them if they needed help in any way, and you know, this is a great moment to capitalize on those relationships and continue to make them stronger. And I will advise to you that if you're not making those calls, your competition is doing it. So just make sure that you stay constant and present with your prospects. So let's talk a little bit about what it means to have business etiquette, right? So online etiquette is it's all about, how you present yourself, whether it's in person or on a online webinar. So the first thing I want you to make sure is that you're well dressed, that you have a nice suit or shirt, or you dress appropriately, just like if you were going to a regular meeting. And also make sure that you test all of your technology, right? So before you get into these meetings, do a couple of runs. My team and I do a few runs before, the day before. Just the camera actually was having issues right before I went into this meeting, but I was testing, so I was able to say, hey, the camera's not working. Let me see what's going on. I happen to think that investing in a headset might be a great idea for you, because not only they'll hear you better, but you'll also hear them better. You'll be more engaged in the conversation. When you have speakers, it's a little more disturbing, at least for me. Introduce everybody to the meeting. Make sure that everyone has a chance to contribute. It is a meeting after all. Um, try to be away from your mobile devices, or maybe put them on do not disturb, shut them off, whatever it's best for you. Uh, same process applies, even if you're, in person or not. I mean, don't interrupt the person. I don't have to tell you this. You guys do business every day. I will have an agenda prepared, probably more so than if I was in person. In person, you're able to read body language better, and you had that interaction with the person. When you're online, you probably want to be a little bit more prepared, only because of the way that the conversation will flow. And I will highly recommend not to be it's tentative sometimes when you're online and you're checking your email and having a meeting, but only because the screen is there. But I highly recommend paying more attention to the prospect. Um, it's very easy to create a Zoom account. Just head on over to zoom.us. And yes, it's zoom.us, not zoom.com. It is zoom.us. And once you do that, there are some hardware requirements in there, what you need, but most modern computers will do the trick today. Sign up for a free account. There's a free account that will probably suffice most of us. It's a 40-minute conversation limit. And so you'll get an email from Zoom, and you'll be able to be on your way to set up your account. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, simply because we have done this before. We did a deep dive last week that I highly, highly recommend to go look at. It's under motiva.net/productivity. You will get an email after this webinar, and there will be links about this also there. But just go on over and watch that Zoom. That will help you set up your Zoom the way that will work for you. But we go deep into how to set it up on during that. Okay, so how do I invite people? The thing that I'm mostly fascinated about is there are many ways to invite people to a Zoom meeting. There's many ways to invite people to a conversation. But the opportunity here with Zoom is the automation part, right? And today I'll speak a lot about automation, URLs, links, meetings invites. Those are the things that I'm going to concentrate on today. And we'll talk about some of those best practice. I want you to, if you guys can, raise your hand. How many times some of you guys, and I experience this a lot, have chased people to get on the phone with you, right? Or, the constant back and forth between you and the prospect, right? And think about how many times you can never get a date on their calendar simply because guess what? They don't match. Your calendars and theirs will never match, right? So you are prone to become a pest because you're calling, you're bothering, you're emailing, and you're not getting that date. So that's where automation could truly help you, because the way we're going to set it up, and we'll talk about that, is helping people to engage with that appointment. I actually think that is better because it seems like they have more interest when they do it themselves and they pick a time and date that is best for them, rather than you dictating what time is best for them on your calendar. So let's talk about best practices when it comes to scheduling. And we're going to talk about automation. We're going to make this extremely interactive. We'll open it up for Q&A. And for those of you who have trouble setting this up, I am open to joining on the computer and helping you set it up. So we'll have a lot of fun doing this. And we'll talk about Calendly. Again, I'm not big on products. I don't work for Calendly. I don't work for Zoom. However, these are tools that the industry is using a lot, right? And they're easier to use than others. There are other tools that may be more expensive, that might be, to some people might be better. I'm showing you tools that are extremely simple to use. Zoom, Calendly, Outlook, those are things that we're using every day, right? So you'll be able to put links on your email signatures, maybe links on your websites to book time with you and your team. So let's get to the nitty gritty of this stuff. So how do I schedule online meetings automatically? That's a great question. So far, so good. So, and by the way, Robert, if you see any questions popping up, let me know, and I'll be more than happy to stop and answer them as needed, okay? So let's talk about Calendly. So Calendly is basically, it's a software as a service, kind of like Zoom. These are what we call software as a services. And if you head on over, by the way, I'll encourage you not to do this right now. We're gonna make these slides available to you guys after we're done. The video will be posted on our website, so you'll have access to set this up accordingly. For right now, I just want you to look at what I'm doing and just hear the explanations I have for certain things. So what Calendly does is it's a software as a service, and when you go to calendly.com, you can sign up for a free account simply by putting your email address on it. But I want you to think about Calendly as a middle, kind of like the middle person. Think about almost like an automatic assistant, so to speak, right? One that's going to look at your calendar, is going to take your Zoom information, and is going to present it to your prospect customers or whoever. So if you go over to calendly.com, you can set up that free account just the same way you do Zoom. And once you do that, you will be prompted depending on what. So if you're an Office 365 member, or if you use G Suite, Google, Gmail, the system will know and it will ask you about if you want to sign up with that email account. Now, just a quick explanation on that. That is something that we call single sign-on. And you probably have seen this before when you you go to a website and it says sign in with Facebook, sign in with whatever. That's what we call in the industry a single sign-on. If you don't want to share that information, because when you sign up with single sign-on, sometimes the companies will get more information that you want them to share. You could always opt out for saying, hey, I just want to sign up with a password in my email, okay? That is completely up to you. I use single sign-on a lot, and signing up with Office 365 is fine. So once you sign up, it's going to ask you to put in your name and the password. Once you do that, Calendly will send you a verification email. Before you can continue to do anything within Calendly, and this is all going to make sense at the end, guys. Trust me. Once you set up Calendly, you have to confirm that email address. Once you confirm it, you will then be prompted to get into Calendly. So I want to stop here for a moment. The first time you log into your Calendly account, okay, is going to ask you, do you want to create a Calendly URL, right? And a URL is literally part of a website. And so I edit that and I put my name and something else to make it more me, right? So you could do that. You can put your first name, last name. By the way, URLs have no spaces, so don't try to use a space. So you can customize this piece. Let's say you want to use Bob's ice cream parlor. You could do that. So if you ever have to send somebody to book time with you, you can say, hey, just go to calendly.com/Bob's ice cream parlor, and you can book time with me. Okay, that's the concept behind this URL. So once you set that up, hit continue and set the time zone for this. And it's going to ask you to connect your calendar. So here's where it starts to become a little more automated. Okay. So now you have an option to connect your calendar. So if you're using, Office 365, which a lot of people are, or if you're using Google G Suite, or by the way, if you're using, just Outlook, you can set that up here by selecting it and clicking next. Okay. And once you select it, your calendar is now connected to Calendly. And we'll talk about why that's so important. And it's so important mainly because of your availability. If you connect your calendar to Calendly, you're basically saying to Calendly, hey, look at my calendar, right? These are the times that I have already booked time with, and whatever's open within that time period, you can book whatever meeting I'm sending out. So for example, right now it's going to prompt you to set up your availability. I work, from like 8 to 6, so I can change this according to my schedule, right? Or maybe there are people who don't work on Fridays, so you can uncheck Friday. So Calendly will never prompt you to book an appointment with a prospect on Friday, right? So you can select your availability that you want to be able to promote to your customers and prospects according to what you want to show. So, then click finish on that. When you sign into Calendly, it's going to give you 3 default type of dashboards. Schedule meetings. Okay, each one of these we're going to go and we're going to talk about it in depth, and you guys are going to have a chance to ask questions about how to set these up. But each one of these can be customized. So you can see here they have a link, so you can use those links, and we'll talk about that. But before we can start using Zoom automations and calendar links automations, we need to first connect Zoom meetings. Okay, so on that dashboard, if you click on integrations, this is a very simple process. You don't need to be a computer scientist for this. Click on that integration piece, and when you do that, there's a Zoom button there. Okay, I highly recommend that you're logged into Zoom already, because again, it's just gonna try to connect it. If you're not, it's just gonna ask you for your username and password. So connect to Zoom, and it's gonna ask you to connect Zoom to Calendly. So think about this. You're connecting your calendar, and now you're connecting your Zoom to Calendly, right? So, and just approve it and authorize it. Once you do that though, once you make that connection, now you can go and edit these online meetings. What does that mean to you? Well, if we click on edit here, we can go to the dashboard and change the actual event, and we'll do a live demo on this and we change the settings to become a Zoom meeting. Because we connect to Zoom, that Zoom meeting, that 15-minute meeting is going to have a Zoom information in it, which means that when we send this link out to people, right, it's going to send the information with the Zoom information. So let me show you what it looks like. So this is what by the way, these are, let's say you were sending it, I'm sending it to Bob's prospect. He wants to meet with me. He hasn't been answering my calls, maybe my emails every now and then, but he finally said, you know what? Yeah, let's get 10 minutes on the phone. Let's talk about it. So I copy that 15-minute link, right? And I send it to him, either an email, and we'll talk about how you can make that look even better, by the way. But let's just say you send that link and you say, hey, Bob, just book time here at your convenience, right? So Bob's gonna feel like, hey, wow, he or she is not dictating my meeting time. It actually creates a little bit of a better feeling for prospecting, because you're not saying, hey, you got to meet me at 10 o'clock. No, you're giving them the option, right? So, and this is what they see. They see, and by the way, this is customizable, so you can say your name or your company name, 15-minute Zoom meeting, right? We can customize that. So here they will be presented with the date and time, and they can pick whatever they want. You may even have somebody that's on the other side of the country, and then you're trying to figure it out, like, oh my God, is it 2 hours away? Is it 4 hours away? Like, I have no idea what the time zone is in California, right? So you don't have to do that. When you send your link, Calendly and the system will do all of that translation for you. But more importantly, it's gonna allow them to pick a time that fits their calendar, and that's what's better for relationship building, right? So they'll go on here and they'll say, you know what, Tuesday works great for me, and they select a time and date, put their information on it. They can even add more people to the meeting. So if they want to add other members of their team, they can do that right there. And they hit schedule. And that's it. It's all scheduled. You're going to get an email automation, an email saying, hey, your prospect just booked time with you, and here's the link for the Zoom. They're going to get the same thing saying, hey, we just booked this with them. And by the way, this is what it looks like. The beauty of this thing is that if somebody gets this on their email, they can just click on add to calendar, and the information, it's all there. So they don't have to worry about, oh my God, did I put it in? Did I not put it in? All of that goes completely away. So think about the potential of you're not having the same problem that most people have. Oh, did you send me the link? Did you do this? Did you do that? No, it's there. And by the way, an hour before the meeting, a day before the meeting, 10 minutes before the meeting, you can set up automatic reminders that you don't even have to touch. You don't even have to think about sending those. It will automatically remind the other side and you that you have a meeting coming up. Isn't that awesome? So you can take it to other levels. You can take it to where you can build a section of, a lot of us we have either a team page or a section on our website that shows our teams. You can have the links for them to schedule appointments right then and there on that page. Like, these are my hyperlinks. If people want to talk to me, I just send them the link. I probably send it in a different way on an email, but if they want, they can go to the website too. Make it as easy as possible for your prospects to be able to have, to be able to manage that communication. So you can post links on the website. I actually have it on my email signature. So if you want to schedule a meeting, when you click on that, it presents you with, what do you want? You want an in-person? You want a Zoom meeting? You want a phone call? Whatever. It makes it super, super easy to set up. I also use it in a lot of my blast emails for marketing, where we call this red button a CTA. For those that don't know, it's a call to action. So the CTA on emails could be embedded your Calendly Zoom link. So we're gonna open it up for Q&A, because if not, I could continue to talk all day long. But I just want to check on with Robert and see what's going on with Q&A. Robert, do we have some questions on the chat?
Hey, Walter. Yeah, we have our first question from Danielle Sen. She's asking, does Calendly connect to an operating system such as Goldmine?
So, and the answer is yes. Calendly connects to a lot of these, what we call CRMs. We use Infusionsoft in our end, and a lot of these softwares have what we call open connections, open APIs, and those connections will connect directly the calendar integration. We call it a calendar integration. In our case, we use Infusionsoft. Let me see if I can share my screen. But we do a lot of automation when it comes to that. So, for example, we'll do, if you sign up to one of our webinars, when you sign up on that form on our website, right? When you went, let me just show my screen real quick. So this is a very important question for further automation of the system. So let me just see if this is my screen. Robert, let me know if you're seeing my Infusionsoft.
I do. Thank you.
Great. So when you go to, let's say, Motiva.net productivity, right? And this is just taking that Calendly to a whole new different level. Uh, when you sign up here on the form, you received um, an email with the information of Zoom and all that stuff. In our system, however, on our Infusionsoft, there are tons of automation that we're building behind it. So let's say after this meeting, you're going to get a follow-up email. We're not going to touch it, right? Those are what we call sequences in our system, and those campaigns are already set up. So by the time we finish the webinar, all this stuff is going to go into that sequence, and that automation was triggered by your Calendly. So did that answer the question, Rob?
Yeah, I think did a good job answering as such as like, Goldmine and other CRMs. I have another question here actually from Mindy Lampert. Mindy's asking, how do you put a virtual background on Zoom?
That's an excellent question. Mindy, you probably will benefit tremendously from the previous webinar we did. We posted it on our website, but it's just basically there's a section on the Zoom that tells you. I can't show you because I can't show you the Zoom part. There's a section on there that tells you about how to do that, and we'll send her an email, Rob, with with a screenshot on that.
Okay, definitely will. I have another message here. Harlan Ellis is asking, what about Calendly's APIs to FileMaker?
You know what? I'm not 100% sure how FileMaker works. I know Soho does. I know Infusionsoft does. There's tons of them. You can see my Calendly screen, right, Robert?
Yeah, I see it right there.
Yeah. So these are the ones that, a lot of, just so you all know, a lot of these, even though they may not have an actual integration out of the box, your developer can create a simple integration with what we call APIs. This is a little more complex. This is more about software development, but there's certainly a way to make those connect with each other. So Harlan, I will highly recommend to talk to your software developer for FileMaker because I am almost certain that they're able to do that. Any
Excellent.
more, Rob?
Yeah, Michael Herman. Michael, good morning. Michael has a question. What if the meeting goes over the 40-minute limit on the free Zoom app? Is everyone who has the Zoom app also using Calendly? So a two-part question there.
So I believe Zoom at this particular moment has no limit, Mike, only because of what's going on right now. But their usual pricing is 40 minutes unless you get, the Zoom paid version, which you can have multiple people sign in at the same time. So if you want, we can talk offline. Again, I did a Zoom deep dive last week that I think is phenomenal. Uh, because we went deep into the whole pricing model, which one is best for people. I think in your case, Mike, we're talking about using the iPad, so I will focus more on maybe testing one account because a lot of people can sign up with the same.
All right. And then I have a question here from Susan Gans. Can you modify the meeting time options from the defaults to a 45-minute meeting, for example? Also,
Absolutely.
can you
Great question.
specify different time blocks for different meeting options? Example, for 15 minutes versus 1 hour meeting. Thank you, Susan.
Absolutely. So you guys can see my screen, right, Robert? The Calendly dashboard.
Yes.
Yeah, so these are out of the box Calendly's, uh, they give you those as a kind of setup. You can create your own event, right? And you can make it a one-on-one or a group event, and you can go into selecting how long of a time you want to do. I'm gonna show you the ones out of the box because those are easier to edit. So like this 60-minute, we can go into edit it, right? And we can say, hey, you know what? I don't want to do 60 minutes. I want to do 45 minutes, right? So when I save that, and I can change what the event says. So I can say, instead of 60 minutes, I say this is a 45-minute Zoom meeting, right? And when I change the location, instead of blank, I put Zoom. And I can write here, what the descriptions will be for my prospects. So I can say, um, uh, I can use this link here to use it. So I can say something like, um, you will receive a URL instructions for Zoom shortly, or whatever, right? Or I believe this one will already add it, so you can say something like, see Zoom instructions attached. You know, you can customize this as much as you want, right? So you can relabel this to 45 minutes and save it. And now that meeting is now a 45-minute Zoom meeting. And you could do, by the way, some of you don't want to use Zoom. You want to use a default phone number. Maybe you have a conference number that you use all the time. You can do the same. You can edit this and change the event. And on the location, you can put a phone number. You can put a phone number that will call the invitee, or you can invite to call you and you put your phone number. Either way, whatever works best for you to have that communication. We're talking about Zoom right now only because Zoom is so prevalent at this moment, but it doesn't really matter how you usually make that communication with your customers. This could actually be an outbound call, you calling them, right? And your Outlook is going to remind you to make that phone call. So it doesn't have to necessarily be Zoom. Did that answer the question, Rob?
It did. And it was good to see you use the example and edit it right there. That was nice.
Yeah, it's easier. Do we have any more? Okay, so I'll spend a little bit more
No,
time on
yeah,
these.
that's it.
I'll spend a little bit more time on these. You can clone these, right? You can save it as a template. You're reusing a lot of these.
Oh,
Um,
Walter, I apologize. I do have another question that just came in.
yep,
Michael's also asking, with the free version, how many prospects from different locations can be on at the same time? And will it, I mean, eventually, when Zoom goes back to their normal rules, will it still be the 40-minute time limit?
I believe they'll go back to the 40 minutes. It's just unsustainable from a software development piece to do the unlimited. So, but you can have as many from right now. I mean, Zoom is kind of open at this moment. They're doing a lot of one-to-ones, free versions.
And then I have another one from Lori Roth. Is it better to do a Zoom on a laptop or an iPad?
If you are sharing screens, right? If your work involves a lot of the, you know, sharing what you're presenting, like what I'm doing right now, or maybe you're doing a presentation of a drawing if you're an architect or things like that, that is best to be done on the computer. Whether it's a Mac or Windows, doesn't matter. If you are sharing from an iPad, it's a little more complex. There's a couple more steps you have to do because the iPad does this thing called broadcasting, right? It doesn't share your screen per se. The software is not designed for that. It does this broadcasting thing where it actually shows your screen, but you have to take a few more steps to do it. So it's easier to do it on the computer.
Okay, perfect.
So I see a question here from Nadine, Robert. How to share a screen. Again, you know, on Zoom is quite simple. I think I shared that on one of the slides. It's just a little green arrow going up. But, you know, I highly, highly recommend going to the Motiva productivity page and just watch that video. This Zoom video, we went deep into setting up Zoom, how to share screens, all that stuff. It's a really intuitive thing.
And you know, I have another question here from Wendy, something a lot of people are probably wondering.
Sure.
Our opinion on hackers getting into Zoom, is it something that they should be adding more security for, or what your opinion is?
Yeah, you know, um, there's a lot of talks about Zoom sharing information with Facebook and stuff like that right now in the news. Listen, I can honestly tell you that when it comes to, if you have Facebook, right? Like I get the same question from people that have a Facebook account. They'll tell me, oh, how secure is my XYZ? Well, it's just as secure as just Facebook is. Because anytime you share information, some of that information can end up somewhere. I highly recommend, as we always talk about, Robert, during our cybersecurity talks, is enabling things like multi-factor authentication, right? And Zoom has that, by the way. If you're logging in with Zoom, you can log in with your Gmail account as a single sign-on. We talked about that at the beginning. But I highly recommend always, using multi-factor authentication. And I can tell you, doing a Zoom video conference is as secure as you're doing, a WhatsApp video or something like that. I mean, I wouldn't share any hyper secret information on there. Neither would I on any other system. I will encrypt emails and things like that. But I think that security is as secure as you also secure your systems. Like I enable multi-factor on all my accounts, and that's the method where it sends you a text if you're, when you're logging in, or it has another way to authenticate.
And then I have a great comment here from Harlan, letting us know he's been using the chat feature to copy and paste our video and URLs from Vimeo, and it's been working great. So it's another great way to spread information while using Zoom itself in the chat. And I have another question here. Danielle has a question about Zoom, if there's some type of lawsuit about information sharing with Facebook. I'm not sure if I've read up on that in the news.
Oh yeah. So a lot of people are, I don't, it's, I was thinking about it this morning because I read a lot about this stuff, and I was just saying a lot of the people that are asking that question right now are literally Facebook users, right? And usually Facebook users will post everything about themselves on Facebook. So it's kind of a funny question, but at the same time, anytime, and I show you that on the original slide. Every time you log in with something, right? And it says log in with Facebook, log in with Google, log in with whatever. Pinterest is even doing that. Every time you do that, there's a certain amount of information that is being transferred to that other system. You're sharing that. You're willingly saying, hey, if I sign up with this, I'm going to give you what you're requesting from the software. So, without getting too deep into it, that's how the Facebook scandal last election was about, because there was a lot of information being shared. Every time you click on those things, you need to be very mindful of the fact that when you say yes to something, you might be oversharing. So, I constantly look at my Facebook security settings because of that, and I make sure I remove any app that I'm not sharing information with. So it's an interesting conversation at the moment, but I think Zoom is not the only company that does this. If you really if you want to know, the truth is the only company that's going to do this in a more efficient way in the next few months, it's Apple, because they're coming out with something called Sign In with Apple that is completely different than what we're using right now as a single sign-on. That's gonna be really protect the consumer, because they'll never even know your email address. But that's another cybersecurity conversation. What else,
Excellent.
Rob?
Excellent information. I have a couple more questions. Looking to round it out. Tyler is asking, what about the iPad Pro versus the regular iPad in terms of using Zoom? Is that as good as a laptop when using it with the Magic Keyboard?
I love the iPad Pro. I think it's almost a computer. In terms of the functionality, no difference. It uses the same operating system, which is, iOS from Apple. So it's no different than in neither one of them.
Excellent. And then Mark Miller looking like with our final question, is asking, can we do Zoom meetings on smartphones if computer option is not available to some of the people? Thank you, Walter and Robert. This is great.
It's my pleasure. Yes, you can. I actually, again, I hate to be pest about it, but we went deep dive on our previous webinar, and we are going to have another one, by the way, Rob. But you know, I usually use the app on my mobile device when I am on the road. And one thing I talked about during our Zoom webinar was sometimes I don't even connect through the computer or internet audio. I actually, Zoom has a feature where you can dial in, and if you click on it, it'll actually dial the number for you from your cell phone. So that makes it a more strong signal connection. And that I do that especially when when the signal is kind of weak. So that's that's basically it. So I just want to remind everybody we're doing this every Tuesday and Thursday, and every time there's a different topic, and we're probably going to rotate some of these. We're doing a webinar this Thursday about DocuSign. I happen to think that DocuSign is a great tool for getting those POs, those automatic contracts signed. I'm interested in a lot of that automation when it comes to, hey, here's my PO, here's my invoice, pay it and sign it, and off you go. So that's the next webinar we'll do on our series. And in the next following week or two, I know a lot of people are feeling disconnected from your teams at the office. And so we're going to be talking about Microsoft Teams and Slack, which are two great tools for staying in touch and staying connected with your team. God bless everybody. I hope everybody's healthy, and we continue to pray for everyone. And thank you so much for your time.